All righty. Welcome, folks, to the March Happy Hour. Excited to kick off another live streaming event here with the LinkedBanker and WSI. So those of you that may be interested in joining the live conversation, if you want to pop over to the linkbanker.com/happy hour, there is a link on that page that should get you to the ability to join me live. I'm going to also post the actual link here into the LinkedIn chat as well. So if you want to come up and join me on stage and be part of the conversation, because a happy hour's not really happy hour unless you have like multiple people talking to each other. So hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. I know we're just at the 5 o'clock, so we'll let a few more people roll in. Hope your March is going well. Got a few things to chat about today, but certainly interested in what is on your mind, so we can see if we can get anybody to come up and join me in the happy hour on stage and have a chit chat. So let's take a look here and see who else we got. Nobody yet. So if you are in the room watching live, feel free to go ahead and say hi, give me a comment or a little share just to make sure that I know that I'm not just here all by myself talking to my computer. So these go live on obviously LinkedIn, which is where probably most people are going to get access to it. But also I push them to my personal Facebook profile. So if you're on Facebook, hello, it's good to see you. And then they also go live over on our LinkedIn channel for the LinkedBanker. So welcome. Hey, Jonathan. Standing awkwardly in the corner, pretending to be very interested. Excellent. Love it. So that's totally fine. You can do that. I will allow it. But very interested in your drink. That's a good thing. Sounds like a lot of the Chamber 501 mixers that I've been to over my days as a banker. So looks like I got Josh coming up. Although Josh, are you camera shy today? Or maybe
I'm driving, so
there you are.
Little difficult camera and drive.
I get it. So, well, I appreciate you joining me and making me not be the only one up here. So, we'll hopefully get a couple of other people that will join
I'll
us.
give you a preview, though.
There you are. Excellent.
Hey.
All right. Good to see you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Looks like a nice sunny day in Ohio.
It's very warm for Ohio. It's 70 degrees. I don't know what to do with myself.
Why do you have a like 3/4 zip on? You should be in.
It was 32 degrees this morning.
Well, I guess that explains it then.
Typical Ohio weather, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Good. So for those of you that are maybe in the audience listening and either aren't clicking to come up and join me and Josh, by the way, I appreciate you wearing blue today. Keep it on brand. I think that's super nice of you, Josh.
I'm trying.
Yeah. But for those of you that might be first timers here, welcome. My name is Eric Cook and I run a digital agency called WSI Digital, but I also run a mastermind and mentoring community called the LinkedBanker. And we started these LinkedBanker happy hours, a couple of years ago as an effort to just try to bring people that maybe weren't part of our mastermind community together, people that love banking. And maybe you are a banker, maybe you like, you're a service provider in the banking industry or anything in the financial services, or maybe we just happen to know each other and you like nerding out on tech and gadgets and gizmos like I do. But it's a great way to network. These do not have any structure to them. They do not have any planned agenda. There's no PowerPoint presentation or slides that you're going to have to sit through. It's just an hour where we go live and we just want everybody to be able to chat with what's ever on your mind and have a good dialogue and discussion. So I've got a few things teed up that have been on my mind over the last month since we were together on the last happy hour. And I'm happy to throw those out there and see who all has got questions. But for the most part, we really try to get the audience to participate and say, what's on your mind? What are you interested in talking about? And those are our tangents and the squirrels that we chase. Of course, if there's anyone listening that is interested in becoming a member of our LinkedBanker community, LinkedBanker, the LinkedBanker.com is where you can go and find out more. So, Josh, since you're the brave soul that has come up on stage avec moi, which is one of the very few phrases I still remember from high school French class.
We.
Yeah, we. What's on your mind? Anything you want to chat about today?
Well, I'm rejoining the financial space on Monday,
Oh my
so
goodness.
I know you're acting very surprised.
I
But
think that's the appropriate reaction, right?
yes.
Yeah.
So heading back to the financial space, not at a bank though, at a credit union, but very excited to get back into there and kind of tiptoe. So I almost want to reverse it back to you and say, what's going on in the rate environment? What do I need to know? Is anything on the horizon? What do you see coming from that
Oh boy.
avenue?
I see Neil just posted a comment on LinkedIn. I'm gonna hopefully give him a nudge. Neil, I hope you saw that studio restream URL there. You can also go to the linkbanker.com/happy hour and there is a join live button there. Neil might have a better pulse on what's going on from a rate environment perspective. I can tell you during our digital banking school session today, it was all on technology and FinTech, so it didn't have a ton of rate discussion. But during the discussion, David Carlson, who's head of sales for Mantle, which just is merging forces, I believe, with Alchemy, if I'm not mistaken. But he
Okay.
was talking, running through some scenarios and had a money market in there, was running some like 1.5 or 1.7, and said that's probably a little aggressive in today's rate environment. Things are starting to get compressed a little bit, and not as competitive from a rate perspective, which means loans are probably going to pick up a little bit, I would suspect, but not as many super high rate deposit products out there. But I think there's still quite a demand from financial institutions interested in grabbing deposits. So, but my economics guru has just entered the room, so maybe Neil can answer that question. Hey, Neil.
Hey, Eric. Hi, Josh. Yeah, so when it
Hi.
comes to interest rates, I heard Dr. Ed Seafried, the economist, talk yesterday. Yeah, it was just yesterday. And basically, the Trump dynamics have been really rocking the market. Nobody really knows the futures
Don't look at
market.
your 401k.
Yeah,
Just ignore it.
the
Look the other
futures
way.
market for interest rates is somewhat concerned about where rates might go, but the concerns can go either way. If the GDP falls, then we're going to get lower interest rates. If the GDP stays where it's at and inflation goes up, we're going to get the word stagflation has been used quite a bit in the last few weeks because stagnant economy with inflation is kind of where we might be. So that's as geeky as I probably want to get, unless you all really want more.
Do you have like a Texas Instruments calculator with lots of buttons that I don't understand what they mean in hieroglyphics that you could bust out?
I can bust out a whole bunch of websites if somebody wanted me to do that. So yeah,
Awesome.
if you
Yeah.
go to, I'll just do it this way. If you go to thecorepoint.com and click on resources, you're going to find a whole bunch of analytics and market resources. And I'd be happy to go through all of that at another time with people who want the economic version of things.
Would you look at that? Way to go. Way to go. I will give Neil credit. So Neil is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for years. we both teach at the Graduate School of Banking. And so I get the privilege of doing these marketing forums for state banking associations here, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois. And a couple of the questions that came up for our last marketing forum were related to deposit growth strategies. And we're really careful when we get together as bankers not to talk about rates and fees, because that's a big no-no when you get a bunch of bankers talking about rates and fees in a room, but more from a general big picture perspective, and how dealing in the banking industry, we're largely a commodity. We don't have a lot of differentiation when it comes to our checking and our savings and our money markets and our CDs. But there was some discussion around how is it that, some of these larger banks can pay $500, $400 for a new deposit account, but the smaller community banks don't want to do that. And how do we differentiate ourselves? And we talked a little bit in one of our prior happy hours about the various CD certificate of deposit, not the music players that I remember as a kid, products that Neil has that were a little different than what you would expect from a traditional 12-month certificate of deposit that your grandpa would get. It's like driving an Oldsmobile. Nobody wants to do that, right? And I called him. Actually, I shot him an email, and he rearranged his schedule and made both of those meetings. And we pulled him in. We had some really, really good discussions with the marketers in the room, not about the nitty-gritty financial side of things, but more so on the ways to market different types of deposit-related vehicles. And it was just a really good, and I know I've said thank you a number of times, Neil, but publicly here on our happy hour, I want to again say I appreciate you kind of rearranging the chairs on the deck for me to make time for all of our wonderful banker friends in Indiana and Ohio. That was an awesome session. And hello, Fred. I love your shirt.
I knew you would, Eric. How are you? Happy Thursday.
Yeah. So, Neil, I don't know if you've had any other. Fred, we're talking a little bit about Josh is making the move back into the banking industry after a little bit of a hiatus. And he asked the question, what do I need to know about the rate environment? What's happening with the financial side of things? So I know you keep plugged into that more so than I do. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts, and certainly Neil over at the Core Point. So we'll have a little bit of an economic discussion, and then we'll see what the next topic is. So over to you two, gentlemen.
Go ahead, Fred.
Any thoughts on that?
Do you have a magic 8-ball, Josh? Because I think that right now is probably your best economic tool.
Yeah.
I actually I hosted a executive forum for some of our banking and credit union executives this week in West Palm, and we had a S&P come and give a briefing, and then we had very different inflation numbers just come out. And again, I think right now there's so much uncertainty, both from a policy perspective. We'll have tariffs announced at 8:00 in the morning and then pulled back at noon, and still unclear about how interventionist the current administration is going to be in the Fed. I think anybody's guess is as good as mine. I will say that just in some discussions I had this week, about half of the executives that were there would not be surprised if we not only didn't get a decrease this year, we got a rate increase. So just a lot of whipsaw right now. I don't know, Neil, if you've got a better handle on it than I do.
Those are good points. I was at the Sheshnoff meetings with bank CEOs, and what was interesting is we went around the room. We had the CEOs talk about the things that they thought were positive, the things they thought were challenging, and kind of give a rating onto where they thought the economy was going on a scale of 1 to 5. Almost all of them threw out a whole bunch of negatives and then said, but on a scale of 1 to 5, I rated a 4. Well, you talked about all the negatives, but yet you're positive in terms of your results.
I was willing to bet you were going to say 3 and just stick it right in the middle, but
just right in the middle.
Okay.
And the irony of it is that for the last 2 years, they've all been, the economy's going to get worse. The economy's going to get worse. The economy's going to get worse. And the economy sort of just keeps moving forward. but they thought it was going to get worse. And I kind of wonder if the fact that our psychology has been, let's be prepared for something negative, has actually created an environment where we haven't gotten. The reason for recessions is always we get ahead of our skis. We always do stuff that's a little too crazy, but we're like, oh, it'll work out, and then it doesn't. And now we're like, we've just been kind of steady as she goes, and now we're getting more excited when the data actually shows that it's maybe a little less confident. There's the GDP Now. Everybody should check out GDP Now. For the first time in about 3 years, it's projecting a negative first quarter GDP. So it's highly possible that we could actually have a recession, even though that we predicted the recession for 3 years and it never happened. It could actually happen now, but as Fred said, who knows? It could change between now and sundown. I just don't know. So
yeah, well, economists have correctly predicted 13 of the past 2 recessions. So
yeah, good quote.
I think there's some sort of a quote.
Well, I shook my magic 8-ball. It says, ask again later. So
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that maybe I don't want to call a certainty, and I'm trying to rechannel my conversation that I had with Lee Weatherington on our last mastermind from a strategic planning perspective, but thinking about what are the things that we know are going to be necessary as it relates to how do we serve customers, or in your case, just soon to be members, is, what is their preference to doing business? Do we have the proper digital channels in place? The session that we did today with David and Grace from Quantic Bank was all about leaning in and partnering with FinTechs and being comfortable with those relationships to help take your institution to the next level. And the topic of omni-channel delivery, which is not, I start an application on a mobile device and it doesn't go well. So then I jump over to the website and I start it again and that doesn't go well. So then I go into the bank and I do it again. Being able to start it on a mobile, to move it over into a computer, and then be able to finish it in a branch. The example that David gave was like Netflix. You can start watching a show on whatever device you want and go to any other device and log in and pick up right where you left off. And so thinking about the experience that you're delivering for your customers and your members, because the things that you don't have control over is this stagnation, magic 8-ball economic scenario, whether the rates are going to go up or down. You just have to react to those, but building an environment where you have the ability to serve the people who want to do business with you and make it easy when they want to do a loan because the rates are low, or they want to get a deposit account because the rates have gone up. Controlling the things that you can control and just reacting in an appropriate manner to the things that you can't control, and just not get yourself in trouble. So I don't know if you guys have any additional thoughts on that.
I love the Netflix example. That really does tie the omni-channel together. We all have done it, and so we know exactly what it feels like. Hey, that's easy.
Yep.
But I will tell you, I'm changing insurance, and on April 1st, I'm moving from one insurance program to another. So about March 4th, they canceled my online access to my insurance, my health insurance. I'm like, I need this because I got to get my explanation of benefits. And then I contact them, say, hey, you guys turned my access off. I need it back on. About 4 days later, it comes on for about half a day, and then it goes back off. And I said, hey, I need my access because I'm actually a subscriber until April 1st.
Yeah.
And then I'm hoping you don't shut it off on April 1st, because I do expect that claims will come in from physicians between April 1st and maybe June something. So why would you shut it off? Oh, I'm sorry, that shouldn't have happened. Well, then why did you shut it off again? Oh, our systems, it takes a few days for our technology to onboard you. What technology takes a few days to onboard? Like, I'm confused. But that's the world we're living in. It's become so disconnected from the ability to just go to the source of who's going to get something done. And I think as bankers, we should really be thinking, what does it mean to get things done for the client? And if, as we move away from personal service to digital, are we creating this facade of, oh, we've got this high tech, but it better be high touch, because high tech that's not effective is super frustrating. Because
Yeah. Yep.
where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that from the banker point of view, we tend to be very us oriented, and we think about all the challenges in creating a seamless, beautiful experience. Regulatory technology. I mean, you ask Neil, what technology today takes days to onboard? The answer is not technology today, but it is technology from 10 to 15 years ago. And frequently that's what's in the middle and back office. And if your middle and back office is batch dependent, is dependent on stuff moving between 2 and 3 systems, each in an overnight batch, then your front end experience is never going to match up to it.
Yeah.
But guess what? Your customers, your members don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't care that you're dealing with that legacy, right? What they care about is, I go to Amazon, I go to Netflix, I go to all these, consumer brands, and I get immediate results. And I expect the same thing from my financial institution.
Yep.
You expect the same thing from your insurance company, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things that, banking leadership needs to understand and invest in middleware and tools that make that process easier. People on the banking front line need to figure out in the interim how to deliver on that seamless experience, face to face and on the ground. I used to, when I spent more time consulting directly on digital transformation to banks, I had this slide that I love to show. And it showed the top half showed this beautiful park with a walking path and these people walking in the sunshine. And then underground was all of this like pokey stacks of cubes holding it up and whatever. And that's frequently what you end up with in the middle of digital transformation, is you promise this beautiful experience to the end user, and sometimes you deliver it, but it's on the backs of the people that have to have workarounds and processes to make it happen. And unfortunately that's just the reality.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
I was talking with a bank earlier this week, and I heard the term green bar reports for the first time in I don't know how many years.
Are they still out there?
And I said, seriously, you're still getting green bars? And the comment was, well, not really, but the platform that we use that digitizes all our reports still produces them so that they look like green bars. So it's like the bankers still have their blankie because it looks like a green bar. They've just put a little, digital lipstick on the digital pig, basically, but it's still not any better than what it was before. So it's pretty funny. Hey, I found the 3 items that I was thinking about from Lee from our mastermind last month, because he joined us and talked about strategic planning and how it's not typically strategic or planning for that matter. And he said, first question that he always asks is, what do we know now, or that we can know for sure? And so that kind of goes back to we know what our delivery service is. We know what our capabilities are. We know what our service standards are, but we don't know the interest rates. So maybe that's a little bit of a challenge. What does our most probable 3 to 5 years look like moving forward? And then the last question that he presented was, where do we want to be positioned in that future? And all the other things that we don't know the answers to, that typically is where a lot of people spend their time worrying. You can build case scenarios, but focusing really on what are the things that we know that we can control, and how do we want that to evolve over the next several years? Whether that's with regards to the interest rates or the economic uncertainties, the political climate. There were a few references to that when we did our show. So just some additional little words of wisdom from the infamous Lee Wetherington over at Jack Henry. So Fred or Neil, you guys are up on stage. Unless Josh, you had another topic. As you guys know, there's no agenda or set MO here. We just want to chat about stuff. So, what's on your mind?
No other topic for me, but I just want to go back to the point where you were talking about what can financial institutions do to differentiate themselves. And I think that a lot of people, banks, credit unions, everybody kind of gets stuck on product. How can we make this product stand out? And I think they forget their roots a little bit in being a community institution, and just being visible in the community, I think, still carries a lot of weight and influences a lot of people too. And I see people regularly on LinkedIn pages and stuff forget that for their FIs.
I'm gonna just be devil's advocate here because I agree with you. But what if you're in an institution where your expectation is the next quarter's earnings, and you know what, being at all these chamber events and being in the parade and volunteering at stuff, and I'm not seeing a return on my investment. So if that's not making me $1, then I don't want my team to be doing it because I can't measure it and track it. So, anybody ever lived in that environment and had to argue that fact with a board or a senior manager?
Hey, you want to jump in, Neil?
I've been lucky.
I mean, I'll say this. I mean, if you can't measure and report on it, it's because you haven't done enough meaningful, deep thought on your marketing attribution model, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things that you can leverage systems and technology to understand the time, the investment, and the payoff on all of those community facing things. I'd also say this, especially, you brought up, and my natural assumption is most publicly traded institutions are larger institutions that are trying to potentially be local or hyper local across a number of different geographies. There is a lot of marketing technology you can use to help you automate some of that hyper local experience without having to invest as much manpower doing kind of manual digital buys across a number of different markets. So I would invest in that first. I mean, I think that you can buy yourself some time in talking about the reporting that's coming as you're standing up that type of reporting. But I would not back away from local because I've done an inadequate job in preparing to measure and report on it.
Cool. Neil.
Well, as you know, I work with a lot of different financial institutions, different settings, and I recently was sat in on a board meeting where they were talking about closing a grocery store branch. And I kept thinking to myself, if this was a objective board, what would the decision be because of this branch's actual function and costs and all the different things? But it was such an emotional thing for these senior citizens who had been on the board for years, and they were there when we opened the branch, and how do I feel about this? And like any external objective board member would have went, well, that makes no sense that we have this grocery store branch. Let's just shut it down. But that was not the conversation. So how do we separate the emotions, which are real? We don't want to object. Objectivity is crucial, but understanding subjectivity is also critical.
Yeah.
How do we value all the elements and say, hey, we want to keep the energy, we want to keep the enthusiasm, but also make really good decisions simultaneously in a world that's changing at a pace unlike any pace we've ever seen before. And there are a lot of people who I feel are getting lost in this pace of change because they're just wanting to preserve what we did before. I just find it to be remarkable when people opt for longevity of team rather than agility of team.
Yeah.
I want the agile team way more than I want the longevity of the team. And these things, to me, all fit together when we talk about community banking, when we talk about competing in a global, or at least a very big footprint. It's no longer the local county.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. And the other thing that jumps to my mind, Josh, is when I did my session for DBS on Thursday last week, I start a lot of my marketing sessions talking about the golden circle from Simon Sinek and the whole, what you do, how you do it, and why you do what you do. And most businesses and financial institutions are notorious for this. They start at the outer circle and they talk about what we do, great loans, great products, great services, great rates. And nobody cares about that because it's not different. And then how you do it might be slightly different, but still everybody's got online applications and online capabilities and mobile apps and whatnot. It's the why that is the hardest question to answer for any organization, because Allison Netzer, who's a friend of ours, I'll say, because Fred and I are going to be with her in about, I don't know, maybe half an hour, recording an episode for the Bankers Book Club. But she shared with me some really cool insight from a project that she was involved in when she asked the bank what their website meant to them, which is kind of like their persona. And one of the last things that the individual said is, if you can slap some other logo on the site and it still is just as good as it was before, you've not done a good enough job explaining. Like if you put McDonald's logo on Chick-fil-A, it's going to be really evident that it's in the wrong spot. Or Adidas logo on a Nike website, you're going to be evident that that's not Nike. That's, and so many institutions have a hard time defining that because their mission statements and their vision statements sound great, but if you were to take the name out of it, you would have no clue who it's talking about. It's just a really ambiguous, cool, to be the preeminent financial services provider to help our customers achieve their financial dreams and goals. Okay, says every bank on the planet or credit union.
Right.
So figuring that out and being able to communicate it, so that when they hear that, they're like, oh, I get it. Like aspiration, they've got certain things that they have in their ethos that when you bank with them, there's things that they do to give back to save the planet and, the environment. And it's not like a traditional bank. And there's a reason that they've done that. So it sounds unique to them. Those are some of the thoughts that run into my head when you think about what boils down to not products and services, but everything else. So,
I mean, that ties right into what you were saying a minute ago about, true strategic planning, right? How many of us have been in strategic planning meetings where the conversation, you can boil it down to, what's so and so in our region, kind of the aspirational bank in our region doing. All right, we'll just do that. Okay, well,
let's do that.
That's not a good way to get to differentiation.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So hopefully those give you some other ideas, Josh. While you're driving, I'm sure you're taking really good mental notes. And the cool thing is,
no longer driving. Now I'm at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Even better. Nice. You're going to go try your ring on, are you?
Yeah.
Very cool. So,
yeah, meeting a couple people after work here. There's Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium for anyone that likes football. And that's the hall kind of peeking over there.
I've been there once. We had a meeting over on that side of Ohio, and we were able to take a field trip / reception there. I think it was a BDO event, and it was pretty cool. So, yeah,
very cool.
Enjoy your time. So,
thanks, guys. Appreciate the insights.
You are quite welcome. So, good luck next week, my friend. Keep me posted.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye. So what else do you guys want to talk about? It's just the three amigos now. Seems like we got a little bit of a lighter crew this month, but I don't know. It's all right.
Well, I'm always interested in what's going on in artificial intelligence. And I was approached by my wife who said, I got this note from Wells Fargo. They said we can make $325 by just opening a checking account. like $325. I flip it over and it's got a whole bunch of requirements. I'm like, I don't really want to read all this fine print. So you're smiling. Here's what I did. I took my phone, took a picture of all this detail. I sent it to Perplexity. I said,
Nice.
could you do optical character recognition and tell me what this says? Of course, it did it exactly like it said.
Yep.
And then I said, well, what do I actually have to do? Because there's all this stuff in here I'm supposed to do.
Cut through the BS and tell me brass tacks.
That's
Come
right.
on, Perplexity.
And it did.
Yeah.
And it said basically all I had to do to get $325 is to use an electronic funds transfer of at least $1,000 within the first 90 days of the account. Now, if I look at this, the amount of text that it said that in was gigantic. And I'm like, okay, I think we should do it. I told my wife, well, let's do it. I was actually going to get the card and show it to you, but I can't find it right off the bat here, but it's here somewhere. Anyway, I'm like, thank you, AI, because on my own, I would have probably concluded, they're going to have some loophole. I'm going to mess around with it, spend a bunch of time, and then they're going to say, well, you didn't qualify because you didn't do everything we asked you to do. So I thought it was kind of an interesting thing in the world of banking. And we know that people are spending that kind of money to get people to open an account. Unfortunately for them, if I do it, I'm only going to transfer the $1,000 because I'm perfectly happy where I am with my other accounts.
Yeah, you can play the game just as well as they do. And I'm sure they've got that baked into their pricing model.
Yeah.
But the flip side could have been just as equally as powerful. It could have revealed all sorts of hoops and bells and whistles and prevented you to say, I'm not going to do all that.
Right.
I'm not going to do 35 debit card transactions a month. Are you kidding me?
Right.
That's redonkulous.
Yeah.
No way. Not going to happen.
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that I track is what are the trends nationally around incentives for different types of accounts and requirements and effort behind those requirements, because I typically see one of about 8 or 9 different types of requirements, including, direct deposit, funds transfer, debit card swipes, whatever. And some of them are higher lift than others, right?
Yeah.
Like it's fairly easy to do electronics fund transfer for $1,000. It's far more difficult, Eric, to your point, to have X number of debit card transactions per month for so many months in a row. I mean, and I understand why, right? That's they want people that are going to be sticky. And if you're doing debit card swipes, it's likely because you have to put in your primary income, and now you moved your direct deposit. Now you've got the wallet in your card. Now you're pulling it out. So after 3 or 4 months, it's now a habit. You're probably not going to move.
Yeah.
But I've seen over the last year the total effort nationally. I'm sure it's different region over region. In fact, I know it is. And the total number of requirements go steadily down by about 15%. So I think institutions are starting to see a little bit of requirement fatigue in general. So and that's on a per $100 of incentive basis. So but there's not a reduction in the dollars. So interesting to see.
Very cool.
To the point of AI though, which I will never shy away from having that conversation. I am looking forward to a day very soon where AI is just talking to AI, right? So you use AI to decipher the legalese on the back of the card. It may or may not be the case that somebody used AI to help write that on the front end. So we'll be having a day fairly certain where fairly soon, I'm certain, where people will be using AI on both sides of the transactions.
Yeah. I pulled up a comment here. I think this is probably one of the largest amounts that I have seen from Rebecca, about $900 from Chase. Would be very interesting if, Rebecca, you were to take the back of that card from Chase, like what Neil did, and scan it and just kind of see what else is there, what the requirements are, and get some of those responses back. So thank you for sharing. One of the things
probably means that Rebecca's account is 3 times more valuable than mine. So kudos, Rebecca.
Rebecca's she's a big deal, so you got some competition there. So You know, one of the other things as we kind of go through this that you could try the next time you get that, or maybe take that same card, is inside of ChatGPT. If you've got that, certainly
Mhm.
Perplexity is a great platform, but you could actually fire up a voice conversation with your agent, and then there's a little video camera which allows for her, because I have gendered mine to a sweet little Australian gal who is now my ChatGPT persona. But you could ask her to say, hey, can you look at this and tell me what the requirements are, and actually have a conversation with the camera, so she's seeing it and reading it back to you in real time, so you actually have a dialogue and say, well, what happens if I don't do that, or are there any other particulars, or do I need to have a debit card? And then you could actually go back and forth and converse with it, which kind of takes that to the next level. So it's not to say what you did wasn't awesome, but there's so many other really cool ways to be able to dive in. So
Now, do you have to be 4.5 to do that?
I think you can do, I think the voice conversation, I think it's just the regular 4.0,
Okay.
and I don't think you need to have the plus account, which is the $20 a month.
Yeah.
Pros 200. Don't know many people that have that, but I think you can still do that on just the regular old free account and do voice.
Okay.
I am a couple of deep research asks away from hitting my limit, so I'm considering the pro.
The pro,
The pro.
yeah,
It is. I mean, it's. I wish they would go to a tokenized model where I could just buy one at a time, because I don't think I would use 100
yeah,
deep research in a month, but I would definitely use more than 10.
gotcha. So, quick little follow up. Thanks, Rebecca. DDA savings, link requirement, incentivizing minimum balance, 3 months. That was it. Wow,
Okay.
$900.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
To your suggestion though, Eric, I haven't done that exact thing and having a voice conversation, but I have and I don't do it consistently, time and all the rest, but like nobody reads end user license agreements. Nobody, very few people read things like account opening agreements at institutions. I have started doing it a little bit, primarily around end user license agreements as I'm trying
yeah,
new AI tools out. And what I've done is I usually just take the text, put it in, just a general purpose chat, or actually I think I've got a Claude project set up for it. But like I don't have anything in there. I just have it to have them organized together. And then I'll ask it, some basic questions like, primarily around like data privacy and sharing stuff. Because
yep.
I'm not going to read 50 pages of legalese, right?
You're not?
So I
Or are you too
I'm
busy?
not.
What are
Well,
you? Huh.
I don't have any trouble falling asleep at night. So, but it has been helpful. Again, I get very nervous. As more and more tools are out there, and we talked on our recent Banking on Disruption about how you can't chase down every tool out there, but
Yeah.
as you're chasing down the ones you're going to chase down, I get very nervous about things like data privacy and what they're going to do with the data and that kind of stuff. So I usually want to find some of that stuff out, and it's helped me with that. So
Yep. Yep. So cool. Looks like Neil's got a bug out. So thank you, Neil, for joining us. Appreciate you being here, my friend, and sharing your insight as always. So the other cool tool that I'll mention, and this is still a plus feature, but it's the GPT with tasks. And it introduces the concept. And Jack Hubbard and I were chatting yesterday. I did an episode with him for his Jack Rants, and we're talking about it. And so the task feature that you have in ChatGPT is really cool. And whenever I'm experimenting with AI, even though we do a lot of work with banks, I always like to do something that's got nothing to do with banks and or data. So there's no threat or fear of, oh, I'd never be able to do this. And it gives you some liberty to be able to play and explore, and then doing it in a way that you do it. So you may have noticed from some of my sips that I have a little Yeti with Metallica on it. So no secret that they're one of my favorite bands. But I have a task that runs in ChatGPT every morning at 7 a.m. And I've asked it as a repeating item, give me a Metallica lyric, just a random pick a Metallica lyric, and tell me the song it came from, the album it was on, and the year the album was released, with some sort of a business lesson or a motivational quote that gets me pumped up for the day. And every morning at 7 a.m., ChatGPT sends me an email. I click on the little green button and it takes me into my ChatGPT, and there it is. And I've since augmented that with, oh, and by the way, I want you to create a really kick-ass death metal Metallica style image that goes along with the quote, so that I've got a really cool image and a quote. And I've screenshotted those and sent them to people that I know are also not just fans of Metallica, but AI curious. And here's how. So if you think about ways to experiment with just fun stuff, every Monday, generate me, or Sunday, generate me a list of ideas for dinner with the family, and give it parameters of what your kids like to eat, or, you're lactose intolerant, or you can't have gluten. And then figure out what the business case is around that. It's been a lot of fun to be able to just experiment with things like that. And again, $20 a month. It's amazing what you get for as little as that. It's absolutely mind blowing. So, yeah.
I'm a little surprised you haven't added those Metallica takeaways to your social media posts.
I'm trying to figure out a way that I can, and I know there is, and as I'm saying this, I'm envisioning your brain going, why isn't he tying this into a make, no code, low code, automated sequence? So his Twitter feed is just hashtag Metallica motivation moments and just hammering. I probably should do that and then mention Metallica, and who knows, maybe they'll think it's pretty cool and give me free tickets to a concert or something. That'd be
They might, or
that'd be pretty cool.
they might think it's pretty cool and send you a cease and desist. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
exactly. Or they might say, shut the hell up and leave us alone. Quit stalking
you
us,
could
Mr. Cook.
you could frame it, put it on the wall behind you.
So, yeah. But anyway, what else is on your mind? Anything else AI related you want to talk about, or banking, or technology, or innovation? You're a smart dude.
Gosh, any and all of that, all of that is always on my mind.
Yeah.
I feel no, I didn't do any prep for this. It just kind of showed up.
You're not supposed to prep for this. We do have our Bankers Book Club podcast coming up
We
with the
do.
recording. So maybe in the last 13 minutes, you've mentioned banking on disruption. You've mentioned Bankers Book Club. My question for you, and I still don't know how you do it all, but you are kind of the main guy with both of those podcasts. Talk to us a little bit about the process of recording a podcast, getting it edited, publishing it out, and how that maybe has improved. Because I know I talk to a lot of bankers that think that their bank wants to do a podcast, they want to share information, but then they get intimidated by the process and the technology and the learning curve. And you shared some of this on a mastermind in the Linked Banker, and I really appreciate that. But for our happy hour people that are with us live or catch the replay, you want to give us a breakdown, high level?
Sure.
Yeah, would love
Yeah,
that.
and so they're both very different. And just as a quick overview, the Bankers Book Club is monthly. It's four of us, you, me, Allison, and Jack. And we pick a book every month, and we are supposed to read it. I think we do. I trust that people do, and then we talk about it.
Or we listen to
Um,
it on audiobook several times.
yes, yeah. Well,
That
that I consider that reading.
I
I
consider
consider
that
that
reading
reading
as
it.
well. You're absolutely right.
But so for we'll just talk about that one for a minute. First, on my personal prep, which is I do that. I listen to them all on Audible. I don't recall if we've had one yet that is not Audible ready. Actually, that's not true. I know our first one we did was not Audible ready. No, one of the ones we did was not Audible ready, and I dumped it into, I think, 11 Labs and had
Yep.
an Audible version made of it, so I could listen to it. The other thing I typically do with it is if I can get the transcript of the book, I will put it into a private LLM, and I will like ask it questions. I'll basically quiz it and get it to give me ideas of interesting talking points from a business or banking perspective to bring in, which helps me just kind of prep and think through, especially when I'm the one that's leading the discussion. On the post side, um, I have historically been leveraging an offshore person to edit these, but I have been playing around more and more with using AI tools. And so I started in Descript a few episodes ago, basically using it to find, clips that could go viral, to post on
Yep.
LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok. Not that I've posted them on TikTok, but that I could theoretically post on TikTok,
I know
and
that's where
that
you do all
worked.
your dancing
I
and
do. Yeah,
yeah.
you
Yep.
can't you can't interrupt the dancing with banking insights. Um,
Pick your audience,
and
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I've also started thinking about using it just for the long form edits, and so one of the things that both cuts down on the cost as well as on the time that it's needed to do the post production. I have noticed that in the last year or so, we'll call it, that I've been playing around with different AI tools for the podcast. The video editing and stuff has gotten significantly better.
Yeah.
On the banking on disruption side, I actually do two things. I do a banking on disruption daily, which is very AI heavy. Um, I changed it up a little bit. I decided that I needed video every day. Originally, I launched it as an audio only, kind of 5 minute or less news update, and that I had working completely seamlessly. Primarily AI driven with a little bit of me editing the script. I've shifted lately now to doing it as a video, and I don't quite have all the automation steps set up to make it completely seamless, which unfortunately means sometimes it doesn't happen. So they come out 3 days out of five, which is probably not the best way to build an audience. But I'm being kind to myself and saying that that's okay. They don't get out quite every day, but I'm leveraging a lot of AI. So I will go through and read articles, various places, blogs, Wall Street Journal, banking publications, etc. I'll find ones that I think are interesting. Typically, 5 or so articles a day. I'll use Claude to summarize them into script format, dump them in a Google Doc, and then I'll go through, edit, add my own thoughts. And then I was just having that, with a push button, go to 11 Labs, turn it into an audio podcast. Now I use HeyGen and a digital twin of my face to turn it into a video podcast. So that's the part that I don't have dialed in for automation yet.
Yeah.
And then there's the
But I've
long
seen the
form.
HeyGen and it's really good. I will say it's
Good, creepy. I've heard
yeah,
both.
I mean those I think in the world of AI, if something's really good, it also can't not be really creepy because that's the
Right.
whole point. So
Well,
yeah,
I'll
I
tell you. I'll
get
tell
it.
you one thing for you, and I never see it. So I've got my microphone off camera, but when I did my Hey Jen, I had my thing here, and one thing I noticed, and you have a beard, so if you ever do this, you have to be careful. It conflates my beard and the microphone. So sometimes when you watch Hey Jen video of me, and I just need to re-record my avatar, the microphone will be embedded in my beard, which is clearly not. I also like have some very weird kind of neck machinations that I don't really do. Very kind of Missy Elliott esque. So there's pluses and minuses to it, but I will say this: there's no way I would be able to get any of that done without leveraging some level. Oh, then so I mentioned the HeyGen, and then I hosted out on Captivate, and I do have Claude come up with the title. Again, I usually have to edit a little bit,
Yep.
but then all the other stuff, the show notes, the audio tags, the SEO, the transcript. When I upload it to Captivate, it just does it all automatically for me. Kind of
Yeah.
push button. Again, human in the middle. I'll read through it. I'll make a couple of quick edits. I can never get it to transcribe my last name correctly, as an example. But again, I wouldn't be able to write those show notes and everything and have them done. Certainly not every day if it wasn't for AI.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The whole automation process of how, and I know you say only 3 days out of, 5 or 7 or whatever, but to be able to even to do that, you think if you didn't have AI or didn't have this, you would be lucky to get 3 days out of the month for something like that.
absolutely.
If you're lucky. So the ability to do just that is really a pretty mind-blowing thing given the state of the world that we have before us right now. So yeah, really cool. Speaking of kind of audio, and I know 11 Labs, we talk about that quite a bit. If you're not familiar with 11 Labs, it's an awesome voice synthesizer that you can train your voice. You can use it to read you back stuff. It's got an awesome app on the mobile 11 reader that you can use to turn even content directly into 2-person podcast interviews like a Notebook LM called Gen FM. But one of the new audio tools that I've experimented with, and I don't know if you've played this with this yet, Fish.audio.
I
I
have not.
I actually trained my voice, and it says you can do it with as little as 10 seconds, but I actually did 30 seconds, which is still in the grand scheme of things, not a lot, and had it generate a little 500 word blurb for me and recorded it. And I sent it to a handful of people, and it was about as perfect of a me as far as tone and inflection and just me being, so it didn't sound like a robot every once in a while. And I'm sure you've seen it where you go into 11 Labs or others and it sometimes doesn't sound like you. This was dead on. I could send it to my mother and she would have thought that it was me.
I gotta check that out. Fish
Yep.
like the band, or fish like a
Nope.
fish.
FISH, which is ironic. And we pointed this out during our internal WSI AI Mondays, that it very well could be used for phishing,
It
PH,
probably is.
which, hey, it's your insurance agent calling, or it's your banker calling, or it's your mother calling, or whatever the case is. But yeah,
Is
it
it
was pretty wild.
fish.io?
Fish.audio.
Fish.audio. Okay.
AUDIO. Yeah. So give that a shot and see. Of
I
course,
will.
if you're listening to this and you're at a bank and you're on a bank computer, or you're watching this later on at a bank on a bank computer, tread at your own risk. If you go to that and it triggers your firewall, I'm going to give you my disclosure right now. I'm not claiming responsibility for any conversations that you may have with your IT department, as uncomfortable as they may be, but it is a pretty cool tool and it just shows you what's possible. So still using the free version, and it's kind of fun to be able to go in there and just do it, and how fast it is. And you just go, wow, I can't even, again, cool and creepy all wrapped up into one little bow. So
That is pretty neat. I'll have to check it out. I'm usually pretty happy with my voice in 11 Labs.
yeah,
I scraped a bunch of podcast audio and cleaned it up and used that to upload and train it.
nice.
So it is pretty good. Like I'm not flat ever.
Yeah.
What I will say is that sometimes it has very interesting choices about where it decides to put my inflections. I will I will sometimes have a lot of inflection in a spot that I would not put inflection, and less inflection in the area where I would choose to.
Probably when you're
But
talking about me, because I know you really get excited.
that is true. Every single time, Eric.
I just want to know if it can replicate your voice. I mean, your laugh, not your voice, but your laugh.
I don't know how I'd put laugh into the LLM input, right?
Yeah.
Like boisterous laugh in a
Allegedly, inside of Fish in version 1.6, you can put laugh in parentheses. It hasn't worked for me, and if it did, it would totally not be your laugh. So I would know that it's AI at that point. But I was listening to one of my Plod Note audio recordings from the Financial Brand Forum, from last year in Las Vegas, and one of the speakers said something funny, and out of the audience of probably 250 people, I could hear Fred's laugh, and I knew exactly. I'm like, yep, Fred was in this session. I remember now. We weren't sitting next to each other, but I heard your laugh, and I was like, nailed it, nailed it. So
Phenomenal.
it was
Since it's just us two in here and nobody else is watching this, I've got a question for you, which is, obviously I'm sure people are watching this, but yeah, I am also a Plod user, and I recently used it in a room that was very large, and there was a fair amount of group discussion, and some of the audio was very subpar.
yeah.
Have you successfully like found anything to take those types of recordings, enhance them, and then retranscribe it? Because there's a lot of stuff in the transcript that is not right.
I have not, but a lot of my big room stuff is typically me presenting. So I keep it up on the front table or on the podium nearby where I'm talking, and it
Hmm.
captures me. And then when there are questions from the audience, usually it's try to get a microphone over to them so they can hear it well, or I'll repeat it. But it's been hard, and I can see where that would be a difficult thing to be able to capture side conversations and chatter in a smaller room, bigger room, but with smaller groups having discussions. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It just was not a great. It was not an ideal setup. It was kind of a last minute thing.
yeah,
I'm trying a couple of different AI audio enhancement tools to see if I can do it, but also like it's hard to make something out of nothing. So
yeah. Well, we have reached the top of the hour. Fred and I have got scoot over to a podcast, and we're going to record the next episode of the Bankers Book Club. We're going to be chatting about the book Trust Based Selling, and looking forward to that discussion as well. I listened to most of that a couple of weekends ago when I was up cross country skiing through my Meta Ray-Ban glasses. I kind of freaked out and thought I sweat through them because they're not really designed to get too wet. So I was afraid to pull them out of my bag for about 2 weeks, and worse that I ruined them. But they are just fine. So I'm very happy. So
well, that's good because we all know you got the limited edition version. We
I
wouldn't want
know, and I
to.
can't get those again because they're
Exactly.
not the thing. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining the Linked Banker Happy Hour. I appreciate you joining the conversation, to Fred and to Neil and to Josh and to those of you that were in the room. Rebecca, thank you for the comments. Craig, I didn't get to give you a shout out, and I caught your little note to Josh after he had already left, so my apologies. But those of you that are interested, we do have Ron Shevlin from Cornerstone Advisors joining us for our mastermind next week on Wednesday, the 19th at 3:30. So if you are interested in becoming a member of the Linked Banker, reach out and let me know. We'd love to let you in on the inside and be part of the discussion with those private mastermind conversations. But we will see you the second Thursday of the next month at 5 p.m. Eastern here on our happy hour. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on the LinkedIns and in other areas in between now and then. Bye for now, everybody.